Hey everyone, welcome to Youth Bombs. I'm Craig,
I'm Olivia.
I am Coleman.
and we're the voice of young conservatives in Alachua County. Olivia and I recently challenged some inappropriate books at the Alachua County level that have inappropriate material in them, and unfortunately, our attempts were rebuffed. So, Olivia, how did you start getting involved with the book challenges?
Well, Dr. Krista Marole, who is a member of Alachua GOP, came to us discussing how she found a sexually explicit book that her son brought home from Gainesville High School, and she went down to the school's media center and questioned them about it. And, they kind of brushed her aside, and then she found a way to challenge it where you fill out a form saying, hey, I don't like this book as a parent. You go down to the school board to one of their, monthly meetings, and you discuss it. And then it just kind of snowballed where they were denying her on some books, allowing some books to be removed, but she opened up this rabbit hole of finding out that there's a whole bunch of sexually explicit books for high schoolers, middle schoolers, and elementary age kids, and then deep into the gender ideology material as well. So she came to us looking for some help with these challenges. I helped her out, and we've probably in the spring semester of the last academic school year, between her and I and a few other volunteers from Alachua GOP, we've filed over 30 challenges, and there's many more books that have gender ideology content. So we had to go down to the school board, fight it. They didn't like it. A bunch of teachers came and kind of protested it. They've been having emails internally discussing wanting to keep these books on, calling it a book ban, which I can get into later and explain why it's not banning books. And that's just a phrase that they use to get a reaction out of people. But we have been successful in removing a few books that have been overtly sexually explicit. However, the ones containing transgender ideology and even some that contain sexually explicit details have remained on the shelves.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's crazy to see. And one of those books contains resources at the end of the book to a number of groups that should have nothing to do with children, particularly the Trevor Project, which has had adult men talking with sexually confused children about their sexuality and offers a quote-unquote quick escape from the website so that parents can't see what's going on if they step into the room and the child wants to hide the website very quickly. It's known for having risks with predators approaching children. It's not a good group. They shouldn't be near the kids. And it's sad to see that these individuals at the library district material level approve of these groups and want children to be able to access these groups and put themselves in danger and be accessible to potential groomers. The Trevor Project also hosted a youth dating app or youth dating Facebook page, having kids under 17 years old discuss dating and be monitored by adults. Really, anyone can join these, and you have had adults join these groups in the past. So dangerous stuff, very bad, and certainly speaks of grooming. Coleman, how do you feel about this?
I am shocked and containing my anger. The first question I do ask, you said Anna on the Edge is one of the books. What are some of the other books that you've encountered, Craig and Olivia?
Yeah, so Anna on the Edge and that Trevor Project description is just one example of many. I mean, there's Marvin Redpost, Is He a Girl? Which, it's a children's book discussing is the kid a boy or is the kid a girl? A character going through gender confusion.
Yeah.
There was another book by it was a poetry book by Rupi. I can't remember. It was a poetry book. It was called like something about like the honey, milk and honey. It was Milk and Honey, which is like a poetry book, but it had visual depictions of sexually explicit content in it, and that was at the high school level. In the past, they have had books where it's Blue is for Boys or something like that, and scenes of sexually explicit content between the characters was going on. I mean, that's just a few examples. And every single book we challenged had very clear descriptions and very clear message of either gender ideology agenda or just purely just sexual content.
Yeah. There's 4 other books that I'm aware of. So like, probably the most famous one is Gender Queer. The other one is Let's Talk About It. Third one's Flamer. And then the 4th one is This Book is Gay. All 4 of which contain sexually explicit graphic imagery that I will not get into here. So, yeah.
Thanks for that.
Right. See, and that's the funniest thing with, like, you see, like, the videos of these school board meetings with parents, like, telling the board what's in these books, even showing the pages. It's like, oh, heavens, we cannot... This is untoward to have this in a school board's meeting. But then somehow it's like perfectly fine for kids under the age of 18 to have easy access to in their schools. It's ridiculous.
Right. And that brings me back to the point about the term book banning. Because when you say book banning, it means that the book is gone forever. Yeah. However, it's not. It's just age restricted. I mean, we age restrict a lot of things. We age restrict movies. Yes. But the movie's not banned. We age restrict when a child can, or when an adult can start purchasing cigarettes, but cigarettes are not banned. We age restrict alcohol, but alcohol is certainly not banned. So when the media uses the terms of book banning or limiting freedom of speech, that's just it's false. It's a falsehood. It's a fallacy. What we're really fighting for is age restricting material for children that are not cognitively able to understand what they're reading, or to not push the gender ideology agenda, which has proven itself time and time again to be completely false, has a lot of holes in the theories, and I think that a lot of people don't agree with it. They're just afraid to say so. They don't want to be labeled as a bigot, but it's more hateful to lie to children, in my opinion.
Correct. Man, so was any of your attempts successful thus far in getting these books removed from these resources in high schools or no?
Yes, they were. I would say about like a third of them were.
Nice.
So that was good, but it was really like they couldn't argue against it. I mean, it was like overtly sexual content.
Yeah.
And when it was brought forth, it didn't align with the Florida State law requirements. The ones that are really hard to get rid of, which practically are never get taken off the shelves, is the ones that contain like transgender ideology.
Yeah.
That's harder to argue because you're arguing an ideology. The ones that have the sexual explicit content is, it's just kind of in your face.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the arguments that are made to keep them is, well, for the sexual content, it's really interesting how sex education has evolved in education. In the public school system. There's a real obsession about it, and there's an obsession to talk about it all the time in an explicit way, especially to younger students.
Weird, right?
So the argument, it is weird. It is very odd, and I think it's a cultural thing that people need to look into more. But what they're saying to keep on these books that have the sexually explicit content is that, well, the kids, it's not that bad, and teenagers have sex anyways, and well, actually, the stats are against that. Teenagers are engaging in sexual relationships as early as they used to, but that also, it doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be taught in the schools that explicitly. And when I say the word explicit, I know I'm saying that a lot because it is like truly.
It is in your face images of genitalia. Period.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And then as far as the gender ideology part, they create wacky arguments. There's one member who I think works for the Department of Education, or he's a representative for it, who's on their advisory board.
Yeah.
I mean, he at these hearing processes to discuss whether the book should be taken off the shelves or not. I mean, he is totally for the gender ideology agenda. I mean, he talks about how men can get pregnant if a man declares himself to be a woman, and he fought to keep on one book, Honanu Hula Warrior by Heather Gale, which is a children's book talking about, you know, the same thing, like is the boy character a boy or is he really a girl? He, at the most recent Library Advisory Council meeting, stated that we need to keep this on because it's representative of indigenous cultures, because indigenous cultures believe in a third gender and that there is such a thing as a third gender. So that's the type of people, to give you a description of who we're dealing with at this local level.
Yeah, and I was back in 2021 when I think Genderqueer was one of the first books to really hit this market, unfortunately. And was it Franklin Middle School? I'm trying to remember what exactly the school was in Northern Virginia, but I was there at the school board meetings, like, observing, learning about what the heck was.
It was
going
in
on.
Loudoun County, right?
No, not even Loudoun County. This is Fairfax.
Fairfax County, yeah.
Loudoun County is arguably worse, but they're both pretty bad. Anyway, one of the parents was bringing up, gee, there's this book called Genderqueer in no libraries. We need to get rid of it. And in order to try to appease to, like, at least the alternative media of why it should be banned, he had an image, like, showing people who are coming in now. I mean, you know, thankfully they were just adults. You know, there was no kids, or wasn't showing to kids, thankfully. But it was, look, this is what their kids are seeing. This is oral sex on a picture book targeted towards kids. This is completely inappropriate. That shocked me. That was shocking to see. So anyway, it made me really angry, obviously, and then it just makes me more angry every time this topic gets brought up in the first place. But I'm glad y'all are putting in the good fight, though, of, like, getting these books out of the sight of children.
Yeah, I mean, and you really need to think about, like, how these books get there in the first place. And it's the people who you elect to be on the school board who make these decisions, and it's the media specialists who they oversee and work with that are allowing these books to get in there. And it's this selective few of, you know, obviously very leftist people. I mean, the education business is always been known to be leftist, who are making all these decisions, and kids aren't necessarily telling their parents exactly what they're learning all the time, which is just realistic. So definitely pay attention to your local school board elections and be very selective on who you want to be on there, because they're direct people who are making decisions about your kids' worldview.
Absolutely. It's really a question of that they should have to fight to get them in, not us fighting to get the inappropriate books out. It's certainly degenerate material. It has no place being there. It's inappropriate for adults. You wouldn't bring it into work and start reading it to a coworker. That would get you referred to HR at minimum, probably fired. So really, it's like, if it's not okay for adults, why is it okay for kids? And if it's not okay to read in the school board meetings, then why is it okay for 6-year-olds? It's not. It's disgusting. It's degenerate. And the people writing these books, the people bringing these books in, it's a shame. It's absolutely tragic, because they shouldn't be doing it in the first place, and you really have to question what's going on in their heads. I don't know why they're so obsessed with sex in kids, but that's where their minds are at, and they just love to shove it on the kids. So that's where we're at.
And there's two things that I want to make clear about this, and I think they're, like, misconceptions, is that people are wanting to get rid of books that discuss gay characters, and that's not it. I mean, let's be realistic. Like, kids are going to know as they grow up into the world that there are gay people, and there's books about, you know, people coming out and all that. The issue is that these books contain that type of content, and it happens to be that they're centered around gay characters. But it's the content of the explicit descriptions that people are upset about. It's not the fact that they're upset that their kid finds out that someone is gay. you know what I mean, or someone is different.
Yeah.
And as it pertains to the Alachua County, they're writing in local media, such as the Gainesville Iguana, that it's a small few people that don't like this. However, that's not exactly true. And Alachua County School District, it used to be the media specialist would go down and remove a book if he or she didn't like it, and the principal would look at it and they would go, okay, yeah, no. And that's what happened at Buchholz High School. The media specialist there became notified about a book that contained such descriptions. She went down there and removed it and told the principal, and the school board got really mad about it, and they rearranged their policy where now the individual media specialist at a school site can't remove it. It has to go through this very lengthy hearing process determined by the school board to decide if the book gets removed. So when they say that it's just a select few, I think it's actually the select few of the school board who's allowing this misinformation and allowing their power to get to their heads to allow these books there, if their own media specialist at a high school doesn't even want it.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly.
I'm going to say this point blank. If there's any person who thinks they are more entitled to teach your kid about sex than the child's own parents, to the point where that person's willing to confide or hide said information or disclosure of, hey, I'm teaching your child sexually explicit material without the parents' consent, that person is a predator. Be very careful.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Fully agree.
Yeah, and it was never an issue, even like 10 years ago. This never, people would have never thought that this would happen. And that's why, Florida state law, we made those regulations. However, like these school boards aren't following it, and parents are getting really mad. And that's another reason why I feel passionate about it, is not only the inappropriate material going around, but their blatant lying and their arrogance against moral law. It's not just that it's civil law, it's moral law. And I just simply don't get it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And as far as what you can do, the viewer, is look at your school's libraries online. But generally, the school and county school boards list out that process for you. You can follow that process and challenge these inappropriate books so that they're removed from the shelves and so that kids aren't exposed to sexually explicit material.
I'd recommend even just showing up to a school board meeting and citing your complaints, and invite other parents and friends to do so too, because you need to exercise your First Amendment right, and it will make an impact.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, thanks everyone so much for watching. We really appreciate it. We upload every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1 p.m. If you have any questions or would like to reach out to us, feel free at youthbombs@alachuarepublicans.com. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks for watching.